My apologies. I got caught behind a train on my way in here, so we will get rolling here. I will call to order the Board of Education meeting for Monday, March 8th, 2021 for the School District of Milton. Please join me in a salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Rich, are you aware of any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion from Rick, seconded by Brian, to approve our agenda as you have it in front of you. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Agenda is good. Action on the minutes is next.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting held on February 22nd, 2021, as presented.
Second.
So motion from Dave, seconded by Jennifer, to beat you just a trickle, to approve the minutes that you have in your board packets. Questions on the minutes? All in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? The minutes are good. Vouchers are next, of course. They are included in board docs.
I'll make a motion to approve general checking account vouchers totaling $941,325.90 as presented.
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, seconded by Dave, to approve the vouchers that are included there. Any questions on those? All in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Vouchers are good. Okay, public comment is next. Kim, were there any that responded via email? No. Okay. Seeing not, I have 4 folks that have signed up that would like to address us tonight. So we will go in the order that they signed up. So let me just reiterate that we're glad to hear from everyone that wants to address us. Hopefully, or please confine your comments to an agenda item. We have kind of if we haven't done this for a little while, we haven't had anyone address us, so I'm just reiterating a couple of the ground rules. We'd like you to contain your comments to about 3 minutes. We will not grab a hook and drag you off, but I will stop you if you get way beyond 3 minutes. Please direct your comments to the board in general and not to any specific person or persons. And obviously, keep everything as positive a light as you can. Okay, I believe Elise, is it Kuglich? Yes. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Elise Kuglich, and I'm a senior at Milton High School. I have come to speak at the school board meeting because it has been discussed that the likelihood of the Milton High School returning back to full-time in-person is becoming greater. This raises many concerns for me as a student, as well as many of my fellow students. First and foremost, I am apprehensive about the social distancing guidelines which are being disregarded as students return full-time. Even with the new STEM wing addition to the building, there is simply not enough lunch, desk, and hallway space for students to appropriately distance. I personally disagree with the district picking and choosing which CDC guidelines we follow. With enforcing this lack of distance, we are opening up a set of issues in tracking close contacts among students, meaning that if a student tested positive, many, if not all of the students in their classes would be quarantined simply because many students will be within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. It is my personal opinion that the school would quickly be shut down again from this, and students would be forced to revert back to fully virtual learning, which is what the school is aiming to avoid. Another concern is spring sports. If the school were to shut down due to a spike in cases, these sports would once again be canceled. Baseball, softball, soccer, tennis, golf, and track. Some of these sports which were canceled last year at the start of the pandemic may be forced to be canceled yet again if we return full-time. Even if the school is not shut down, there's a good chance of some of the players being close contact and forced to quarantine, taking away a part of their season. The winter sports season was proven to be successful in our current schedule, and I trust that spring sports would follow similarly. Along with losing spring sports, we risk the possibility of losing prom, homecoming, and an in-person graduation. In addition, this would be our fourth new schedule of the school year. It is not fair to teachers, students, and staff to keep changing the schedule right as we are beginning to adapt. Consistency is key for a well-functioning school system, and I think many students and teachers would agree that all these fluctuations are difficult to manage. I don't want it to seem like I don't want to go back to school. Of course, I want to go back to school daily. I think everyone can agree here that we would all like life to go back to normal. So it's not that we don't want to go back, it's that at this point in time, we don't believe it is safe yet. I'm not here tonight to lie to you and say that virtual learning is my favorite thing in the entire world. It's not ideal. I think we can all admit to that. But the fact is, people are still dying. Ignoring distancing guidelines because other schools around us are going back full-time is not the answer. Think about your children's safety. I know many teachers are vaccinated, but could still carry the virus home to their families, some of which are high risk. These risks will only intensify by bringing all of the students back. I hope that you all think carefully about this issue and weigh in all the factors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Second to sign up is Todd Myers.
Hello, my name is Todd Myers and I am a senior at Milton High School. In my opinion, returning to full-time in-person learning would recklessly disregard the health and well-being of students, faculty, and community members. Without a doubt, the classroom dynamic comes with countless intrinsic advantages over virtual learning, and few argue otherwise. I remember my in-person cohort days very fondly, and I look forward to seeing my peers and teachers every other day. Maybe even the best day virtually pales in comparison to the poorest day in person. Nevertheless, we are amidst a pandemic, a tragic circumstance beyond the policy-making power of the school board. A vote of 4-3 cannot altogether halt the climbing total of COVID-19 victims in Rock County. We cannot arrogantly pretend the coronavirus pandemic no longer impacts our lives. Moreover, Milton High School is not prepared to double the student presence in a matter of weeks. Inadequate spacing is available for social distancing, and I must urge against the inevitable violation of CDC guidelines. Reopening at full capacity would risk an outbreak among students and possibly even among staff, forcing students to return home. In an effort to avoid virtual learning, an outbreak could jeopardize the possibility of in-person graduation, prom, and homecoming, all events that our senior class has worked immensely hard to attend. Beyond the health hazards, Milton High School facilities need to be addressed. In particular, only one parking lot is open to students at the high school due to construction. Even at half capacity, the parking lot is full every day. As someone who paid $40 for a parking pass, I think it's unacceptable that students should have to park across the street at Schilberg Park. To my knowledge, parking has not been guaranteed to students who purchase parking passes, which needs to be a consideration in a potential reopening. Additionally, consideration of student opinion on reopening has been sorely lacking. At the high school, the student body has not been surveyed or formally debriefed on the possibility of reopening. Student concern should be of the utmost importance, as they are most immediately and directly affected. Out of respect and courtesy, students should have been offered a more involved role in this decision. Milton High School is simply not prepared for an influx of students, and the environment is apt to foster an outbreak. Aside from being inherently risky during a pandemic, full-time in-person learning simply isn't necessary. Virtual learning, while imperfect, continues to successfully educate willing students. I recognize that for all practical purposes, this decision has already been made. To that end, I can only express my disappointment. Nevertheless, I offer this plea. The safety of students, faculty, and community members should be the Board of Education's #1 priority. I implore you to vote accordingly. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Next is Altone Benucci, signed up.
Hello, my name is Altone Benucci and I'm a senior at Milton High School. I'm speaking today to share my concerns about the possibility of returning full-time and the negative consequences this would inevitably have. With reopening, students will be forced to sit much closer in the recommended 6-foot distance. For upwards of 70 minutes at the high school, kids will be in close contact. The CDC's official guidelines clearly recommend a maximum of 15 minutes of exposure when masked and within 6 feet. On top of that, Rock County's Phase 2 plan still recommends 6-foot distancing, regardless of the number of cases. Despite the number of cases going down, it is still our duty to enforce precautions in order to avoid the spread of COVID-19. Milton High School simply does not have the capacity to attend a full body of students returning. Another factor which greatly concerns me is the fact that students that sit next to other students that test positive must also quarantine for 2 weeks. On our current hybrid model, the adequate distancing and cleaning ensure that students are a safe distance and do not need to be home for such a long period. By introducing this rule, students that take many precautions, both at home and at school, can and will be punished nonetheless. If one person tests positive for COVID-19, up to 48 students can be sent home, a total of 8 from each class and 8 from lunch. These students that are sent home cannot participate in in-person learning, sports, or other activities. For many groups, such as football, swim, show choir, or POMs, this is not worth the risk of going back full-time. The claim that fully in-person learning allows students to receive a better education does not hold true due to this precaution. Students must not be forced to sacrifice the current hybrid model and attending activities for a high-risk learning environment. Once again, it is our duty to ensure the safety of our students, staff, and families. Full in-person learning puts a student's social and academic life at risk. I hope you consider the full effects this decision and vote will have and vote accordingly to the best interest of our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And also signed up to speak is Holly Shannon.
Hi, my name's Holly Shannon. I'm 16 years old and I'm a junior. And like the 3 students who went before me, 3 who I might add are like some of the brightest and best that Milton High School has to offer, I disagree with the board's plan to move the district or the middle school and high school fully in person. I myself am a hybrid student. I don't do well with virtual learning, but I still oppose it because I think it is unfair of the school district to force students to choose between their education and their livelihoods and well-beings of their families and of themselves. And I think looking nationwide, cases are on par with what they were last autumn, back when many school districts decided to either go fully virtual or to go with a hybrid system, which worked fairly well for Milton until the rise of cases, which lasted throughout the fall and the winter. And I think as we watch the nation enter into almost a year spent in the pandemic, I can't help but reflect back to the beginning. When I myself saw the idea of doing a full nationwide lockdown where everyone was locked into their houses, no businesses were allowed to operate, no one was allowed to go to their jobs for 2 weeks, I wonder where we might have been now, especially when looking at other nations who did the same thing. I think as long as we continue to enforce the safety standards that have already been set up, there is a greater amount of hope that we will enter next year with a regular schedule and regular lives. My biggest fear about this meeting tonight is that the board has already made up their decisions. But I hope that they've seen that the 5 students who have come out and taken time out of their days and schedules who protest against this plan because they fear for their safety will change their minds. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone else want to comment that didn't sign up? We have a couple of minutes if there would be an interest, but if not. Well, thank you for those comments. One thing I can tell you is I'm really proud of the ability of our students to eloquently get up and state their case and passionately make their plea. Pat on the back of the teachers have done a great job. That was very, very impressive that the kids can do that. So thank you to them for that. Okay, we will move beyond public comment to a superintendent update. And letter A there, we have kind of a fun and exciting thing to do that we haven't been able to do in a while. And maybe there's several of my board members that didn't get to do this. We used to have a thing called Red Hawk recognition. And we were able to highlight people in our district, students, staff, et cetera, that have been identified in some capacity as excellent in their passions and in their fields, etc. And I will transfer it to Rich and let him share the good news.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm also going to ask Principals Zerwinski and Stuckey to come to the podium, and they're going to share a little bit about this agenda item too. But I'm very pleased and proud to announce that two of our teachers have been awarded the 2021 Herb Cole Foundation Fellowship Award. It's a very impressive honor, one that's extremely well deserved. And I want to congratulate both Jessica Fetting, who's an 8th grade language arts teacher at Milton Middle School, and Anna Miller, a speech and language pathologist at Harmony Elementary. And Sarah, can you share a little bit about the work that Anna does at Harmony?
It didn't appear at first, so thank you for giving me a chance to talk about Anna today. Anna was not able to be with us this evening. She is watching on YouTube, and I hope I can make her proud as I am of her. She is an amazing speech teacher. Anna works with our youngest Redhawks, our 3-year-old speech students. So we have a group of 3-year-olds who come to Harmony, and they get speech lessons from Anna. She does it as a play-based therapy, and it's amazing how far the children come just in those few months that she works with them in that program. With our school-age children, our 4K through 3rd graders, Anna's a very innovative teacher, uses multiple different teaching techniques, really matching whatever is needed to meet the needs of the children. She does a great job using instructional technology, both as a tool in her lessons, and she takes the time to record her lessons and share those out with families so that they can show their students at home. The students can then get that incidental benefit of watching the lesson all over again with their families. And the families are learning and seeing what a great job their children are doing at school in their speech lessons. Those are just a couple of quick examples of the work that Anna does. She's a communicator, a collaborator. She partners with UW-Whitewater and takes on student teachers on a regular basis. She's just a very classy lady who we're very proud to call a colleague, and I congratulate her. I wish she could be here with us, and she thanks the board for your time in recognizing her this evening.
Good evening. I'm excited to talk about Mrs. Jessica Fetting. She is in her first year at teaching at Milton Middle School, but not her first year as an educator. She was nominated for the recognition by one of her students, which should speak volumes for the type of educator she is. All means all is really what Mrs. Fetting is about. Every student who is in her classroom feels like they are the most important student of that day. It's a fresh start each day the student walks in, and being able to focus on the student both learning and social emotionally are both gifts of Mrs. Fetting. So we are very proud of her and our MMS community, and congratulations, Jessie.
The next item on the superintendent's update.
Thank you. So it's odd to talk about summer school in the middle of March, but it is that time that our families are learning the classes that we get to offer. And a week from today, our arena scheduling opens up in Skyward. We were not sure how planning was going to go this year, kind of like last year when we had to pivot to virtual for our program. We weren't sure after teaching in a year in a pandemic how many teachers would be up to the task. And I'd just like to give a huge shout out to our Milton educators as well as those teachers who come to us from other districts. We had almost 100% of the applications that we would have seen from a typical year back in 2019. And I'm proud to say we're offering 41 enrichment classes for our 4K through 12th graders, including 5 brand new classes that innovative teachers have come forward to offer to families. We're offering a variety of courses this year at Milton East, Northside, and the middle school for these enrichment. And the high school, because of all of the construction, we pared back some of the classes that were offered there, but we will still be doing our academic program up there. I'll report back to the board at a later date with more details, but I wanted to give a huge shout out to our staff. I was just so pleased and proud of the fact that the teachers and staff are willing to work for summer school again. And I hope we have lots of families who sign their kids up. I think it's going to be an exciting summer.
All right. So I was just looking through my notes. It was just about 10 months ago that I was talking with the board about what we were going to be doing with the graduation ceremonies for the class of 2020. And if you remember, we had our about 150 individual graduation diploma ceremonies, and then the road trip and mailing, and then our virtual celebration. We've obviously had more time to think about what we're going to do for the students of class of 2021. In your board packet, I do have a brief summary of what the plans are. This is a plan that will be shared with students and the families this next week. So some of you are getting a sneak preview of it actually right tonight. But the intention is, obviously, graduation is our biggest event, and it's the most important event that we have for our seniors and for our students. And we want to be able to have an opportunity where we can have all the students together. So the goal this year, the graduation will be taking place on the specified date, June 6th. And the first plan is to have it in the stadium, an outdoor graduation. We will obviously, with guidelines, we are looking at what we can do. The goal right now, though, is to have our students, actually we'll be doing a little bit of a reversal. We'll actually have the students up in the bleachers where we can socially distance them, and then have the guests down on the field. And we believe we can have up to 6 guests per student in the field. They'll be able to watch the ceremony. We'll have a stage to the side. We're working on those details, but we believe that's going to have the best opportunity. It's important, if at all possible, to be able to bring the entire graduating class together for that ceremony. That's something that we believe is important, and we want to work to try to be able to have them together for that ceremony. Now, that is weather dependent, and because we have many of our students have families that are coming, it's amazing. I think the earliest we've ever had is October. We've had calls to see when is the graduation date, because they're booking plane tickets for the graduation. So we will be having the graduation ceremonies on June 6th. Should we have inclement weather, we will be having to pivot to the indoors, which obviously with construction, we have some challenges that we will be dealing with. But to be able to have that, we will, as I shared there, we will have 5 separate graduation ceremonies where the students are divided by alphabet into 5 groups. There, students will be able to have up to 4 guests per student per graduate, and we'll have that inside Gym 1. And we'll be able to conform the Gym 1 and still have the guidelines that are required to have the students in that gym. It'll be a shortened ceremony, but we'll have ceremonies at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on that Sunday afternoon. So more to be coming out about that. Questions at all?
Jeremy, is there any chance the new gym would be done, or is that completely impossible?
The new field house will not be completed by the graduation date. That is a for sure. It will be all ready to go for next fall, but we will not have it available for this graduation on June 6th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. And the last part of the Milton Forward Plan is an update to the board on the situation with COVID. I have a couple of things that I want to talk about there. Some information from Rock County Public Health on COVID cases, vaccines, and a change that we made at our elementary school. So to start with, the number of positive cases per 10,000 continues to decline, both across our district and across the county. There's a document in board docs that shows that decrease after the significant increase back in November and December. Those number of cases have been going down steadily since January. They've decreased every week that we've taken a look at those, and are currently at a level in our school district of 13.14 positive cases per 10,000. That's not for our students and staff. That's for our entire population of our school district. Hospital metrics. Rock County is reporting 5 COVID-19 patients in Rock County hospitals as of last Thursday, March 4th. None of the hospitals are currently at peak census. And if you remember from a previous meeting, getting all of the hospitals off of peak census is what Rock County Health Department was waiting for in order to change their phased plan. So last week with that update from the hospitals, Rock County moved out of phase 1, and on the screen and inboard docs is the updated Rock County phased plan. For K-12 schools, their recommendation is that K-12 schools provide virtual options and flexibility to shift to virtual. Another piece of information recently is the continued vaccine clinics across the county. There now have been over 27,000 who have received their first dose of the vaccine, and over 17,000 that have received their second dose. In our district, nearly all the staff who wish to be vaccinated have been vaccinated with both doses. The others who are still on the waiting list, we got word this week that they will be able to get their first dose this week, and then a follow-up with their second dose later on in March. So we're enthused about that. So over the next few weeks, all of our staff members who wish to be vaccinated will have been. There also today, there were some new CDC guidelines that came out for those who have been vaccinated. Rock County Health Department hasn't incorporated those yet, so we'll continue to be in discussion with them. But it's around if folks have been vaccinated after 2 weeks, their ability to meet with others who have also been vaccinated. So that isn't a change that we're making in our district right now, but it's something that we'll continue to keep an eye on. And then we also, as far as the positive cases, we put out the Red Hawk Review on Friday. It included our weekly dashboard of positive cases. As of Thursday of last week, there were 4 students who had COVID positive active cases, and no staff members that had COVID positive active cases. So we're enthused about the decrease in the numbers, both within our district and across the county. But we continue to keep an eye on those number of cases. The other thing that I want to update the board on is our 4K through 6th grade. As you recall, we had some parents who missed the deadline back for the January change for switching between on-site and virtual instruction, either missed the deadline or decided after the deadline that they'd like to request making a change. In looking at those requests and what that would look like in our class sizes across our elementary schools, we did approve those requests, and those will be starting on March 15th. There'll be 54 more students spread across all of our grade levels from 4K through 6th grade and across all of our different schools. Of those 53 students, 33 of them will be in our 4K through 3rd grade schools, and 20 of them will be at Northside Intermediate School. With those changes, we are adding some students, obviously, to our cohorts. With those new students, our cohort size ranges will be between 12 and 18 students in our elementary schools, and between 15 and 19 students at Northside. We'll continue to require the use of face masks, the daily self-screening for students and staff, encourage the frequent hand washing and physical distancing to the greatest extent possible. In some of our classrooms, we won't have a pure 6 feet of physical distancing between each student. But we're planning on making that change to start a week from today to grant that request from families to have their students on site for the rest of the year. We're anticipating for our elementary schools that would be the last time that we would allow families to make that change. So if they've chosen virtual, they would remain virtual for the rest of the year. If they've chosen on-site, they would remain on-site for the rest of the year. In order to incorporate those additional students and provide transportation for the students that needed it, on our buses, we currently have up to 40 students per route on our elementary buses. Not all of the routes have that many, but that's the maximum that we have on any route. There's additional information that I want to share with the board on the 7-12 related to our 7 through 12, but I'll save that for the agenda item 3A, which is the next agenda item. But any questions, thoughts, comments from board members on the information that we shared?
I was just wondering if I could comment on the Cole Fellowship, because we didn't get a chance to do that.
By all means, Shelley, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say congratulations to Jessica and Anna. It's not a matter of just getting nominated. It's a very lengthy and detailed process, so I don't know if you're aware of what they have to go through as a candidate. And then to actually get accepted, just because you fill out all the paperwork doesn't mean you're going to get accepted. And I think it really states that we have 2 in our district, what the quality and commitment that these teachers and staff people have in our district to our students, to our families, and that they're willing to go through that process, because it isn't an easy process. So I congratulate you and wish you the best in your career. It's just starting out, so you have a lot of years left to go. And same with Anna, since she's not here tonight. But I just wanted to be aware that it is a big process to go through. So it's a big accomplishment to be awarded that.
Yeah, I can and second that too, that it isn't a matter of just being nominated, but it's a very stringent selection process. There are 100 teachers across the entire state who are awarded that. 2 of them to be from our district is very impressive. It speaks to the work of our teachers. And both the teacher and the school where they work receive a $6,000 grant to be used to help students in those schools. So that's something that will be coming down the road too.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Shelley. Any other questions for Rich on the update plan in general? Seeing that, we will move down the agenda, but probably on the same topic. 3A is discussion and possible action on the instructional model for grades 7 through 12, and I will segue back to Rich for that.
All right, thank you. And I want to share some information and then open it up again for board comments, questions, and thoughts. This is specific to our 7th through 12th grade schools. So specific to Milton Middle School, Milton High School, and our MECAS program. And as we've had these discussions for the past year, we've really focused on balancing our 2 guiding principles of limiting the risk to the safety of our students, staff, families, and community, and also continue to provide a high-quality education for all students. If you remember back to the start of the school year, we started the school year with a cohort model for our elementary students, allowing families to choose either a virtual or on-site model. And for our middle and high school students, we started with an option virtual, but the on-site option wasn't a 5-day every day. It was a hybrid model, A day and B day. And other than times where we've gone fully virtual because of positive cases or holidays, we've stayed in that model throughout the year, and it has worked very well for us. These past few weeks, we've been looking at an option to return all students who choose to be on site, to return them 5 days a week. Some things that we've considered as we've been looking at that option are the positive COVID cases throughout the county and also throughout our school district and in our schools, what's happening in other area districts, how successful they've been in making that change or being in a fully on-site model, and the level of social emotional for our students are some things that we consider. I shared a little bit already about the active COVID cases. Again, there's a document in board docs that lists that continued decrease in the number of active cases across the county and across the school district. You can see Kim has it on the board, and it lists for each school district in the county the number of active cases per 10,000 residents. And then specific to our school district, we do our dashboard regularly, and we've seen also a decrease in the number of cases in our dashboard. I mentioned earlier that as of the end of last week, we had 4 positive cases for students across our district. That's from 4K through 12th grade. One of those students is at our middle, is in the schools that we're talking about, is in our secondary schools. The other 3 are elementary students. And we currently are fortunate that we don't have any staff with positive active COVID cases. So again, that positive trend and the vaccine use has led Rock County to make their change in their phases. A number of area school districts have either returned to giving families an option of either being fully on site or being fully virtual. Some of them have been in that mode the entire school year, but others were initially in a hybrid model similar to ours and have recently made that change. Area districts that now offer a fully on-site option for all students include Beloit Turner, Bigfoot, Broadhead, Clinton, Evansville, Edgerton, and Parkview. And again, some of those have been fully virtual fully on site for the entire year. Others have shifted over the past few months. But the reason that we're alert to those districts is because we can see what's been happening in those districts as they've either kept all of their students on site that have chosen to be on site, or they've made that change from a hybrid model to on site. And the report from each of those districts is that they've done that very successfully. They haven't had significant outbreaks of positive cases. That was information from the superintendents in a discussion on Friday that I had with Rock County Public Health officials. They also reinforced that these other districts that have moved to a on-site every day for all students who choose to that model have done it successfully as far as not having increases in the number of positive cases. There are some area districts that are still using a hybrid model. Janesville is fully on site for kindergarten through 8th grade for any that want to, but their high schools, their 9th through 12th graders remain in a hybrid model. I've heard some discussion from their district about considering a fully on-site model for their high schools, but they are not in that situation right now. And the other area school district or countywide school district, Beloit throughout the year has been fully virtual, but has recently moved their kindergarten through 3rd graders on site, while their 4th through 12th graders remain virtual. When I talk regularly with other Badger Conference schools, and while some of those are in our area, that's more spread out geographically, with many of those schools being in Dane County. But a significant number of those districts have also either continued to be fully virtual, fully on site with a virtual option, or have moved in that direction, including Fort Atkinson, Baraboo, Portage, and Beaver Dam, and others that are considering it or have made a decision to change models but haven't done that yet. We've had numerous discussions with staff, with parents, and with students. Some of them are in favor of making a change and some prefer hybrid. I think that people on both sides of this issue have very valid concerns and very valid points that they brought to the table. I don't know that there's anything that our students that spoke today shared that I would disagree with. I think that the things that they're concerned about, I'm also concerned about. We did have virtual sessions where we met with the entire middle school staff and the high school staff to listen to any concerns that they have about this option and to answer questions that they have. We met with the student council at Milton High School. Principal Bill Horn and I did, And we've had numerous calls, visits, and emails from parents. Some of the concerns that have been raised include students who are struggling both academically and socially and emotionally, struggling with either the fully virtual model or the hybrid model. The concern that was raised earlier about the physical distancing has been brought up and is a valid concern. The larger class sizes that ties into the physical distancing, if we do decide to bring all of the students back or give the option to come back every day. Some information on that are currently at Milton High School for the second trimester, 34% of our students are virtual. So right now, 66% are on site in the every other day model, 34% are virtual. And at Milton Middle School, 24% have chosen through the end of the third quarter to be fully virtual. So 76% of our middle school students through the third quarter had chosen to be on site. If we do make this change, our anticipated class sizes at Milton High School, most classes would range from a low of 10 students to a high of 22 students. And these are anticipated because we would need to hear from families on whether they would prefer their student to be on site or virtual. But anticipated would be anywhere from 10 to most classes, 10 to 22 students. There are a few classes that would be up to 26 students at Milton High School. And at Milton Middle School, most classes would have 24 to 26 students. Some would be up to 31, although the administrators said that they would try to reschedule some of those students to move them into some of those smaller groups and out of the larger groups. At Milton Middle School, looking at the space needs and the sizes of the classrooms, if we had 36 square feet per student, that would range from having room at 6 feet or 36 square feet per student, having room for 20 to 27 students, depending on the classroom size. Some classrooms are larger and some are smaller. Some other concerns that have been raised are the number of students on buses. Because we are not able to add as many buses as we want to, there's a limit to both the number of buses that are available, but even more so the number of drivers that are available. We would likely need to increase the number of students on the buses right now. I shared earlier that at our elementary schools, we've made a change to allow up to 33 families on a bus, and that ends up being a high of or a maximum of 40 students on some of our elementary routes. A concern was raised about the lunchroom, about seating and staffing in the lunchrooms. I shared information out with the board earlier that at the middle school, in the lunchroom, they would be utilizing the gymnasium, the bleachers, and the stage. Currently, we're sitting at the middle school with 3 students at a lunch table, and with this change, we'd anticipate that we would have to move to 4 students at a lunch table. At Milton High School, because of the additional space and the change from 2 lunch periods to 3, Principal Billhorn felt that we would be able to maintain the 6 feet of physical distancing at Milton High School during the lunch period. And our principals are available to answer specific questions on some of these items too. We've had discussions about furniture in the classrooms because at the start of the year when we went to the hybrid model, we moved a lot of desks and tables out of the classrooms to create more space. So if we do make this change, we would need to bring those things back. We've talked about the timing. If we do make a change to offering fully on-site and fully virtual as our 2 options, when would be the best time to do that? And you'll see in the recommended motion that time is April 5th, which is the Monday that we return from spring break. We wouldn't be able to do it before then because we need the additional space that will be provided when our referendum projects open up at both the middle school and the high school. We're going to be adding a significant amount of square footage at each of those schools over spring break. And that we are planning to do whether we make, and we will do whether we make this change or not. There has been some questions about whether it would be better to wait a week after spring break before bringing students back. So Monday, April 5th is the first Monday that we are back in session after spring break. Monday, April 12th would be waiting a week. In the recommendation, it's Monday, April 5th, in part because in discussion with Rock County Public Health, if you recall back around Thanksgiving, they were recommending that school districts take a break and move to fully virtual for at least 2 weeks after Thanksgiving and at least 2 weeks after New Year's. And we were one of the districts that did that. They removed, in their updated phased plan, they removed that recommendation from their phase that they're in now. So they are no longer recommending that districts do that. They said that districts certainly can choose to do that. And if the board feels that would be a better move, we certainly could amend the recommended motion. But because Rock County isn't recommending that we take that time to move to fully virtual after any school breaks, it's not built into the recommendation that's in board docs. The one other thing that we've considered is staffing. And if you remember at the start of the year, we moved some secondary staff to Northside to be able to have additional cohorts at Northside and keep those groups smaller. We have potential. It would depend on how many students we end up having at the middle school and the high school if we make this change. But we have potential that we would need to add staff. But any staff that we would add would fit within our current budget. So it wouldn't be a change to our budget. But there's a possibility both on the need to add aides, and some of those might be tied to which students choose to come back or not come back, and also add potentially a number of teaching staff. That would be that I don't have solid numbers on that today because we don't know how many students would be looking to come back. But those are all the different things that we have considered. So the recommended motion is listed in board docs. If the board does approve that tonight, we would communicate that plan out to families, find out from families which students would choose to be on-site and which would choose to be fully virtual. And then we would prepare our classrooms, our lunchrooms, our transportation for that change if that's the direction that we go tonight. So with all of that said, we'll answer any questions. Principals are also here to answer questions. If it's something that's specific about what things would look like in the schools, I'm going to probably ask them to come up. But if it's kind of the overall plan, I can address those too.
All right, thank you, Rich. Well, let me start and just offer a thanks. I think folks are starting to get a little bit of an appreciation for a potential action like this and how far-reaching it is across everything that our schools do. And I want to thank the administrative team and all the building principals and all of the staff for everyone's input in sort of doing the what ifs and the troubleshooting about, if we do this or if we consider it, these are the things that we have to consider. And Rich just delineated all of those for you. So I want to applaud them for that. I feel like we have asked most of the questions, and there might be things that we discover that need a solution yet, but I think we've started asking the right questions and asking for the right information to decide that. And then for the rest of the board, just by way of a little bit of background, this discussion started at the last meeting, or at least the inkling of it. And while it's true that I believe Rich has the authority to pivot us in this direction should he choose to, as he and I have talked, I felt strongly that it should come back onto the agenda and get discussed like we're going to, I anticipate. And I think we've had a wonderful team effort, partnership, if you will, between the board and the administration to address all things COVID way back a year ago now, and all the decisions that got made. It's been jointly done by the administrative team and coming up with a recommendation that the board supported, or it's been a board action that the administrators in turn supported. So it's been a wonderful, productive relationship, and I want to continue that, and felt like we need to do this jointly. So ergo, it ended back on the agenda for tonight. So it obviously is a potential action item if someone is so inclined. But maybe before we do that, if folks want to share the things that you agree or don't agree with, or questions that have not been answered, or anything pertinent to the 7 to 12 model moving forward.
Joe, I had a chance to read through everything and had what I thought was a very productive discussion with Rich on some of these items. And just kind of making a bullet points for myself, looking through the different things presented to us. Under the current numbers in the Rock County data that was presented to us, we have about 1/10 of the student body at this point impacted, and 0.2% of the staff. And looking through some of the changes proposed here, we've increased staff passing time, made modifications to the lunch schedules. And I guess looking holistically, K through 6 has done this successfully, and I would argue very successfully already, and has been operating under this method for all practical purposes the entire in-person year. I think as we looked back the last several months, the activity schedule that was reintroduced and re-implemented, I think everyone would agree went successfully as well. And looking at the Rock County data, unlike November, statistically speaking, there's not a great difference between where we are today and where other districts who have gone in person, such as Turner, Bigfoot, Broadhead, Clinton, Evansville, Edgerton, and Parkview, from where they are. And so I think the last thing that kind of weighed upon me is in all of this, we're still proposing having the mask mandate in place, which is, as I understand it, is one of the most effective tools that we have. And so I think a lot of thought, to the point you made earlier, went into the recommendation. A lot of the questions that I had have either been answered, or the other outlying data presented to us addressed as well. So I feel like it's a thoughtful plan being proposed here, and I think in really in all regards, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay, thank you, Dave. No particular order. Anyone can jump in that is so inclined.
I'll go. I had a nice conversation with Rich this weekend, and thanks, Rich, for all the information. I've been kicking this around all weekend, and I keep coming back to this idea of the social distancing, which both the CDC and Rock County are saying that we still need to do. I think it's great that the numbers are low, but I believe that they're low because of all of the mitigation efforts that we've had in place. And I'm worried that if we let our guard down too quickly, especially in regards to the social distancing, that we may see a backslide. I think the comparison to the K-6 buildings isn't really apples to apples, because you can take those kids, you put them in a room, you keep them there all day. So I'm not really big on that comparison. And yeah, the masks will still be in effect, but it's the combination of the mitigation factors, the masks, the social distancing, the cleaning. It's all of these things together that really are the most effective. None of us knows how this pandemic's going to end, and I would rather see us take a more cautious approach. So I'm not in favor of the change.
I'll piggyback off some things that Rick just said. I would agree with his analysis of what's going on at the K6 building. Those kids are in small cohorts. They're in classrooms where a lot of the furniture has been removed. They stay together as a group for the entire day. They're not switching from class to class to class, which is what our middle school and our high school kids do. My other biggest concern is I've heard a lot of talk about the psychological effects of this, which clearly that's undeniable. This pandemic has had psychological effects on all of us. But what I haven't heard is a lot of discussion about the psychological effects of all the change that kids and families and teachers have been through this year. And one of our very well-spoken students alluded to that. So I thank you for that, because I think that's really important. Anytime there's change in your life, that creates stress. And our students and our families and our teachers have been through a lot of stress this year just due to change. I also think that we owe it to our community to be cautious. Everything I read, everything I've heard, everything I see on the news and elsewhere, as Rick alluded to, was that social distancing is really critical. And I know that it's just not possible at the high school and the middle school with bringing all the kids back. And there are new variants right now that they keep talking about. The variants are in Wisconsin, they're in Northern Illinois. We don't know what's going to happen. And when I hear all the students talk about all the things that they could possibly miss, homecoming and prom and all those things that are really important to kids, the things that last year's seniors missed, I would like to see us give them the opportunity to have those things and enjoy those things, which is a big part of what school's all about. School's about academics, but it's also about a lot of other things besides academics. And I would like us to see giving those students the greatest possible opportunity to enjoy those things in their senior year. So I also am not for the proposed change.
I'll go. I am for the change. One of the main things that was really important to me is obviously the students' health and safety is important, but there's no doubt that the evidence out there points to that our staff is more vulnerable than our students in terms of impact of COVID. In fact, CDC data actually indicates that influenza is just as dangerous as COVID-19 to students and kids ages 0 to 17, 18. So it was really the staff that I was really concerned about, as they are the more vulnerable. And now that we have a vaccine and the majority of our teachers have been vaccinated, that kind of removes kind of a barrier and a roadblock. When it comes to wearing masks and social distancing, if you can have both, great, but it's a belt and suspender type approach, because if you needed both, our country would be shut down right now because we wouldn't be able to fly on airlines. That would completely shut down our country. And as we've seen with the airlines, you don't need both. A mask is effective, and that's not. And as Superintendent Dahman has suggested, I mean, the 6 feet is going to be enforced as much as possible. So it's not every student that's going to be less than 6 feet. Plus, with the extra square footage, it just makes a lot of sense to me. And yeah, change is very stressful, but I've seen in my family, and I've seen in others' families, the impact that hybrid or complete virtual has done to these families with emotional distress, as well as academic degradation. So to me, it makes more sense now that we have protected our staff to go to a 5-day option, on-site option. And I agree with Rich. I mean, for students and parents that have concerns, that is valid. They do, their concerns are valid. But they have an option. They have an option to go fully virtual. The kids and the families that are going hybrid right now that want to go full time don't have an option at this point. And I think it's time we give them that option. So I am completely in favor of this, and I think that the risk of health impact to our students is extremely low, and therefore I will support this.
Rich, could you or the principals just give us some feedback as to what the student council thought and what the staff, what their concerns and comments were at each building?
I can start with that, and then Jeremy and Tara can chime in too. Jeremy's up there, so we'll start with the high school. In the staff meeting with the high school staff, they raised a lot of concerns that we had here, and it was, I would say the tenor of that was somewhat logistical. But if we move forward with this, what will it look like, and how will we address these different concerns, and raise some good ideas, some good concerns that we've been thinking through. In the meeting with the student council, there was a variety of concerns that people had and feelings on this topic. There were some that spoke real strongly, like the students did tonight, about their desire to stay with the hybrid system. They mentioned that it's working well for them. They talked about the decrease in the ability to physically distance. They talked about athletics and to be able to continue with those things and with other big events that are coming out. Some of the same concerns that we had. There are also those students who spoke at that time, and I received some follow-up email from a high school student talking about how the hybrid system might be working well for students who are strong academically, but how difficult that system is for students that struggle academically. And when Mr. Billhorn comes up, he can maybe speak a little bit too about the level of success that our students are having. It isn't the case that students are struggling because they're not working hard or because our staff isn't doing a great job. It's a difficult system to not be on site every day. And Jeremy, you were part of both of those meetings. Do you want to share your key takeaways from those?
I can, yeah. Yes. Much like Mr. Dahman mentioned, I would say that at the meeting itself, much like what the students shared tonight, there's apprehension for many of those students. They shared how the current system is working, shared concerns about what it could mean for athletics, what it could mean for safety. Again, the way that the students articulated that tonight. I did have students who reached out to me, and some students who also shared that they were in favor of going to 5 days on. I mean, we had students who shared, a few students who shared during that meeting, some who approached me afterwards too, to share their struggles with the current system. The fact of the matter is we have students who are struggling. Our failure rate is actually very high as we are looking at second try grades that are coming in as we process them today. That is a concern to me. It is, I think, a combination of a variety of factors. Like Mr. Dahman said, we have some students who are, it's not that they're not working hard, but that they struggle a great deal, and some that they need something different. I do need to say that we have students that shared with me, approached me afterwards too, that after the student council meeting, that are very much afraid, that want to continue to keep their current distancing. That is where we're facing right now. I do want to make one point, just real quick clarification. We currently do have 3 lunches at the high school. We will not be adding to the lunch spaces, as that's one of the big concerns is how do we do lunches at the high school. Currently, we can seat about 150 students between the upper lower cafeteria and the south balcony. We won't be adding to that space. We're not going to try to put more students there because we're going to try to we do need to maintain the 6-foot distancing because the masks are off. That's where we'll be adding the spaces in the STEM flex spaces, the lobby, and some other spaces, and hopefully when we're able to get outdoors. So we're confident with regards to that. The classrooms, though, as Mr. Diamond mentioned, that there will be more students there. Yeah. Yes. So parking is obviously with construction, it gets complicated. We do currently have the 1/3 of the parking lot, the upper lot where students are parking now. Should we go back to 5 days a week, we've worked it out with JP Cullen where we will be finding other parking for all construction workers, and we'll have the lower lot again. So between we actually stopped selling parking tickets in parking passes in October. So we're confident that we're able to again, if only people who are parking in the lots who have the passes, but we're confident we have those spaces. Between that and Shilbrook Park, we will have adequate parking. It will be tight. You always have a lot more drivers in the spring than you do the fall, obviously, because you have all those sophomores who are now 16 and are now driving to school. But it will be tight. There'll be times when students are going to have to park into Shilbrook Park, though. But we do have plenty of parking between Shilbrook Park and the lower lot.
Mr. Realhorn, I think you brought up a good point, as well as Mr. Diamond, in that there are definitely students that are struggling with the hybrid model, and in some cases a virtual model. And as everybody on the board knows, one of the main focus and goals for Wisconsin, the Department of Public Instruction, is to create an equitable education system. And I would argue that what we have now, I mean, it is what it is, right? We had to do what we had to do, but in no way would I call it equitable for all of our students. And we kind of have to do that because of the pandemic, but I think we're at a time where we can make it more equitable by giving that choice.
May I add for
Go ahead, Carol.
Okay. So I think it just needs to be really clear that the middle school classrooms, the spacing won't even be close to 6 feet. And I think we just need to acknowledge that as families are making decisions, should we choose to move to this model. Currently, our classrooms for the 6 feet of distancing, most are maxed at 13 kids. And as you heard Mr. Diamond sharing of our class numbers, 26 is a pretty normal class size at the middle school. So I think we just need to be very clear about the spacing at the middle school and what it means when it comes to the 6 feet of distancing. And I think that's the part that makes staff pretty apprehensive, because they want to do right and they want to be right by kids. And it's really hard to follow that with our classroom sizes, even with our additional spaces moving up. So are opening up. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Shelley or Jen? You don't have to comment if you don't want to, but you're certainly welcome.
Yeah, I have a couple more questions. I'm just curious to know, other than, of course, the level of success for the students, what are some of the other strong kind of cons, right, of staying in the hybrid system? So other than academic success, what else? Why would we go back to face-to-face?
I can speak to that, and if the principals or directors want to add anything to what I share on that, they certainly can. I think the largest is the academic needs of students, and we spoke to that already, but I want to reinforce the significant struggle that some students are having with the system that we have in place right now. We've seen students come back to school on a full 5-day basis in other districts, and we've seen it work well. And as we look at the education providing to our students compared to the education that those other districts are providing to their students, that academic and emotional students is, I think, is really important. That fully or they're in the hybrid system, I don't think that our students are getting that to the extent, getting the support that they need to the extent that they should. So it really is the biggest reason, and the main reason is the reason that we would have 5 days of education if we weren't due to COVID is because students learn best. We can best support the students that need it if they're in school every day.
And Shelley asked the question again about what the students were saying, right, as a group, and she did ask about the teaching staff as well. So, can you just update me a little bit more though on the teaching staff? Obviously, at the middle school, is their staff really apprehensive still? It sounds to me like that's where you were coming from when you addressed the social distancing spacing. Yes. That's a long walk for a yes, huh?
And I would agree that in the discussion with the middle school staff, it was more emotional than it was in the discussion with the high school staff. At the middle school, because right now at least there are more middle school students choosing to be on site compared to the high school. So anticipating that class sizes will be bigger at the middle school than they will be at the high school. At the high school, because of the nature of core classes and elective classes, there sometimes is a bigger range between smaller classes and larger classes. But at the middle school, it's a little bit more consistent. And I would say in general, there were more concerns raised of staff at the middle school than there was at the high school.
I guess I just have a couple more comments. This obviously is no easy task for us, obviously, to decide. And I think my fellow board members have certainly made some valid arguments on both sides. So I, of all people, want to make sure that there's a homecoming and a prom and certainly athletics. I also don't think that we know the long-term effects, though, of the model in which we're currently in, which does scare me a little bit. And I think administration has done a really good job of digging in and finding out the best ways to do this face-to-face for 5 days. And I think that the educational benefits, obviously, in bringing our students back probably does outweigh the risk. So.
I just have another question. So we won't be doing an A-B schedule anymore. It'd be a traditional 1 through whatever every day. So the kids that are at home virtual are going to have to adjust to that then. Right. Being at home, doing a little bit more rigorous schedule per se, from what they've been doing.
That is correct. They do log in every day, so there's not an asynchronous day. The afternoons are more catch up. But they are logging in every single morning. They would have in the new model. They are going to be. We are going to have a straight at the high school. We have a straight. It's going to be it's a 5-period, 6-period with a study period, but 6-period day.
I'm mixed on this also. I think by bringing both of the buildings back, it's going to help acclimate the kids. So then you're not starting over in the fall, trying to acclimate them socially with classroom norms, social norms, everything that they've lost while they've been out. I mean, I'm seeing kids laying in bed doing algebra and, in their pajamas, and they're coming back to school where I substitute, not here in Milton. They're coming back in pajama pants. I mean, they're just not getting what the norms are or what they were. And I think it's going to take a lot to get kids back into that schedule. So I could see the benefit of that. So we're ready to go in the fall, but I'm really worried more at the middle school, I guess, with the spacing. I mean, those classes, we've talked on and on about how small they are to begin with, and then bringing them back to normal size classes in a pandemic. I've seen what they look like regularly. So, I mean, there would be a concern that whether maybe even 3 feet in some areas, depending on the class size. So I see points on both sides of it.
I have 2 questions and a comment. I'll start with my comment, and it comes as a past educator. I think when kids aren't successful, whether it's a pandemic or not, it's our job as educators to identify why that's happening and do whatever we can. That's educators' job, is to make kids successful. And I don't think the only way that kids that are struggling right now can be successful is to bring them back 5 days a week. I think there are other ways that maybe could be identified that could help those kids. So I just don't want us to think that that's the only option. That's always been educators' job, is to identify kids that struggle and do what we can to help those kids. My two questions are, has there been any polling or surveying or research done on how many kids at the middle school and high school will choose to go virtual rather than do the AB schedule that they now have? So they're not virtual now, they're doing the AB schedule, but because that is being taken away from them, they're going to choose virtual because they just don't feel safe. Has there been any polling or surveying done about that? Okay. Because
myself there. So we haven't done any polling or surveying on that. We have asked students, because we're getting close to the start of the trimester and the fourth quarter at the middle school. We've asked them about potential changes to the hybrid system or to fully virtual, but we haven't asked them about coming back. That would be something that if the board approves that move, that we would need to reach out to them and do. I think if I'm remembering the numbers right, in the second try at the high school, there were 35% that were virtual, and at the middle school, I think 24% that were virtual. So we're assuming that the numbers would stay in that range, but there's also the possibility that there would be some who are on site now, comfortable with the hybrid, would switch and move to fully virtual. So I think the likelihood is that we end up with fewer than 65% of the high school students on site and fewer than 76% of the middle school students on site, but we don't know for sure.
Okay. My other question is, has there been any discussion about at what point, because the possibility exists that schools will be closed down if the virus rears its ugly head, at what point will that happen?
Yeah, there has been discussion on that. We've talked with both other districts who have been using the 5 days a week model for their students on how they've approached that, and we've talked with Rock County Health Department. And Rock County's phase plan, their recommendation is that you offer a virtual option and you have the flexibility to change to fully virtual if needed. So if there were a significant number of positive cases, we would contact trace like we have been. The contact tracing will be a little bit more difficult because there'll be more students in a classroom and more students on a bus, but we would still contact trace, and students that were determined to be close contacts would be quarantined. I asked Rock County Health Department last week about when they would recommend that we close a school down, and they said if there is evidence of a spread that's happening in the school. So they say it wouldn't be the case where if a student or a number of students test positive that we would automatically close the school or cancel prom or not be able to hold graduation or a football game. We would contact trace and quarantine the students who were determined to be close contacts unless there was a significant outbreak at the school. We're optimistic about that because other districts have been through this throughout the year, and they've been able to conduct their athletic programs and maintain their classrooms even back when the numbers were higher across the county and across other school districts than they are now. So we're optimistic, but like anything else with COVID, we don't know for sure what the future will hold. So we would continue to monitor, and if it looked like we needed to move out of the system that's being proposed now, we would move out of that.
Rich, would we at some point hopefully go back to a hybrid then?
It would depend on the situation. It would be an option. Ideally, we stay in the system that we move to. If we leave this meeting planning to stay hybrid for our students that are on site, our hope would be and our expectation would be that we would stay hybrid for the rest of the year. I wouldn't anticipate if the board decides tonight to not move to hybrid on April 5th, I don't anticipate that we would bring this back for an option to the board down the road. And vice versa. If the board decides tonight to move to a fully on-site model, our plan would be that we would maintain that for the rest of the year. I think we've been a little bit more cautious than a lot of other districts in moving from one step to another. I think that has served us well, but we've approached it with trying to have as few changes as possible. So when we do make a change, we plan it well and we implement it well, so that the likelihood of having to move out of that change becomes less.
All right, I guess I would take my turn. We don't have a motion on the floor yet, of course. I think like most of the board members, I have been fielding input from a lot of folks. It was sort of a crescendo of input from the camp that wants to be on site 5 days. In other words, folks were asking questions a month ago, like, when can we get the kids back in school all the time? And of course, it was, anecdotally, I don't know how many people that was, but there was just kind of some inquiries along that line. As this plan got put together, obviously the rumor got out, because that's what I brought everyone out tonight to hear our discussion and whatnot. And it led the administrators, I prompted Rich a month ago to say, hey, what does it take to get the kids back in school? So they've had all of their meetings and discussions and walked through all of the stuff that we just talked about. So yes, there's folks on both sides of the issue, and I would echo Rich's comment. I can't disagree with what anyone has said. One of the real take-home lessons for me through this entire experience is that the next 10 people that you ask about COVID have 10 different ideas. It impacts everybody differently, and we're trying to be aware of that. So I would want to address one sort of comment from the students or reassure you that, your health and well-being is certainly paramount to the things that we're talking about. It has to be part of the discussion with everything else that we have to weigh. So it is challenging. The things that I rely on when we get to a difficult fork in the road, if you will, is I sort of envision us walking down each path and play the what if game. So if we stay in the hybrid model at 7 to 12, we're pretty sure that we're not meeting the needs of the students academically and socially as well as we could, right? So that's a deficit that we've got to address somehow. To walk down the path of 5 days a week in school for those that choose, certainly there's a risk there, and we will never tell anyone that this is risk-free or that there's a guarantee that we will or won't experience something if we go forward. To me, and I'll tell you, I'm in favor of going back 5 days a week or giving them the option to do that, because we still have the ability to react to this situation and pull back. If we don't make an effort in this direction, we are in the same situation we are tonight as we will be for the rest of the year, I would assume. So I feel like we have a chance to adjust if the circumstances change. I'm pretty comfortable that they won't change dramatically given what's happening around us in our community and in other schools. Folks that are doing this successfully, I don't understand why we can't do it successfully. And I do want to re-emphasize the point that I heard Rich just make. If we get a positive case or two or a handful or whatever, it does not necessarily close school, and it does not put proms and graduations at risk. Now, if we get lots more cases than that, yep, we're going to have to weigh that and see how best to proceed. But I think there's an assumption that if we get a few cases that we've automatically blown up chances to do some of those things that we all want to be part of. I don't think that's the case. We are going to have, we may have a case or two to deal with. We may have a handful. I don't know, but we have ways that we can adjust that and carry forward for the majority. So I think we can do this successfully. It's been commented to me the school is the safest place these kids can be. And I would echo that from the standpoint of we've given you all the tools and told you how to do this, and you've done it for the times that you've been in school, and it's a testament to the abilities of the staff and the students to use all the strategies that we've implemented. We're going to continue to use those. I know it's kind of an understood thing. We're going to have the masks on. The social distancing thing is really hard to factor in of how much that's going to be violated, if you will. And it will. I'm not naive, and especially at the middle school, I think that's a little bit more of an acute space issue than the high school is. So I think we've got ways to address this, and I think the potential gains to me outweigh the risks. So that's the end of my comments. If anyone chooses to put a motion forward, we can act on it. We do not need a motion to continue status quo. That's sort of a motion in the negative that we don't need.
I would like to make a motion that students at Milton Middle School and Milton High School be given a choice between either fully virtual instruction or 5 days per week on-site instruction beginning April 5th, 2021.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we do have proper motion and second to hit the floor. You just heard Brian reiterate what the motion is, and I think it's pretty clear for everyone what's at stake here. Does anyone have any additional comments on the motion? Same subject matter we've been discussing, obviously. And if folks have had a chance to get their questions answered and make their minds up, and if I don't see any objection, we're going to proceed to vote. Absolutely. And I just start on my right. It's my first one of the night. So I'm going to segue far right and go with Dave first.
Yes.
On the motion is Dave, yes. And Brian?
Yes.
And Rick?
No.
And Joe is yes. And Mike is next.
No.
And Shelley?
Yes.
And Jennifer?
Yes.
By my count, that's a 4-3. Is that right, Kim? Oh. That's why they don't let me count. I'm sorry. 5-2. I call the motion passed. Thank you, everyone, for all of your collective insight and input. Obviously, very, very valuable. Okay. Let me grab the agenda back here. Thank you for coming, kids. Item B on new business is discussion and possible action on Early College Credit Program, ECCP, and Start College Now applications for the 2021-22 school year. Mr. Billhorn.
In your packets are the applications for the fall ECCP and Start College Now. Again, these are the students who next fall are electing to take advantage of these state programs to go to State Technical College, Black Hawk Tech, or the UW system. So those students have to apply by March 1st for the next fall. These are the students who have made those requests and completed the requirements. We've reviewed them. For some of our new board members, I try to get this update every now and then. This is part of a state program. Students can access up to 16 credits through either of these two programs. The requirements are that they have to have exhausted the programs that we have here at Milton High School. And so these students have met those requirements. The fact that they are here tonight does not automatically mean that they will actually end up enrolling. This gives them the ability to start enrolling. Sometimes then they take a look at what the schedule looks like. And so the credits that we have here with 15 students, 16 students requesting, I'm looking at it right here, 57 credits at Blackhawk Tech, or our 5 students requesting 37 credits through the UW system. It will be less than that. Usually is always less that actually get it because it works in their schedules. But these are the students that are bringing forth tonight that have met those requirements.
Jeremy, I just have a curiosity question. When kids take classes like this for their textbooks, let's say the student who's doing Calculus 2 at UW Whitewater, that textbook would be a hefty priced textbook. Does the Milton School District pick that up, or is the student responsible for picking that up?
Part of the requirements of both Start College Now and Early College Credit is we are responsible for the instructional materials, so we could pick up the price of the cost of those books.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And they change them every year.
I'm sure they do. Imagine that.
I have a question, Jeremy, too, and am I moving? Probably am. It's curiosity based. So when I see the list there of the student taking the welding, the tech types classes, does the refurbishing of our STEM wing allow us to meet some of those needs that they wouldn't necessarily need to go to Blackhawk for?
You know, in this case, it would not. We've exhausted our staff that can teach. We teach the most welding we can from our staff, and so a lot of that is the entry levels. And actually, we go through gas metal arc welding, which are our ticket. We have classes, and I'll be presenting this when we actually April meeting. We're talking about some of our variety of options, but we have students who take our welding classes. We actually have an advanced welding course, which is articulated with Blackhawk Tech. So it's Blackhawk Tech class taught at Milton High School. The students who you see here have exhausted those options and are going beyond that. It would not be feasible to actually run a course that would offer this. And it's also some of the equipment, some of the specific equipment. We have new spaces, which is great, but it's some of the specific equipment.
Very good.
Jamie, I have a quick question too, since I've never gone through this. Is there a max that students?
16 credits.
Okay.
Like 16 credits. Start College Now for Blackhawk, the technical school at 16 credits in grades. Can only be grades 11 to 12. You're actually technically allowed to do grades 9 through 12 for the UW system, although it's generally almost always 9th or 11th and 12th graders.
So the one student going to UW.
Yes.
Will be online?
They can be the online, the explosion of the number of online classes has made it easier for students to schedule that. Now, again, that student may take those. They have no idea when they're scheduled, so they have not seen the fall schedule yet. But they have to apply for.
Okay, if no one has any other questions, we have to.
I just have one other quick question. Okay. These are not the kids though that are doing like the co-op program.
No.
Okay, that's a whole separate thing.
That's separate. So co-op is actually a work-based study. So youth apprenticeship or co-op students are actually employed and they are getting credit for work-based learning.
I think I used co-op incorrectly, Jeremy. I mean, the kids that are doing like, I work with a student in Elkhorn. He's just a child of a friend of mine who's doing his last 2 years at Gateway. Yes. And he's going to finish his high school career with a associate's degree in electrical engineering. Imagine that. That's not this.
I don't know exactly what that student is. So these are students who are taking actual credits. They are enrolled with other post-secondary students in these classes.
Okay.
But this is not their articulated courses. Those are those courses that are taught at Milton High School, or in the case of CNA, we actually have called with Edgerton, where they actually going to school. Those are articulated classes, which are articulated credits. So we're actually our staff teaching. These are students who are actually being enrolling in.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I would make a motion to approve the early college credit program and Start College Now applications for the 2021-22 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion from Dave, seconded by Jennifer, to approve our ECCP and Start College Now. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. C is open enrollment. Ms. Kim?
In your packet, there's 3 out and 1 in.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 open enrollment alternative applications as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion from Rick, seconded by Brian, to approve open enrollment applications. Questions? All in favor, will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Miscellaneous A is staffing report.
Make a motion to approve the staffing report as presented.
Motion from Rick, seconded by Jennifer, to approve our staffing report. Questions on it? I hear none. All in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Staffing report is good. Gifts and donations. Oops, where did we go here? And that, as soon as I get it up, looks like a single donation, but not insignificant. Thank you to our friends at First Community Bank for a $12,000.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the gifts and donations with gratitude.
Second.
Thank you. Motion from Mike, seconded by Rick, to approve our gifts and donations. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is excellent. Meeting dates. What do you know, Mr. Dahman?
We have a couple things scheduled and a few things that we need to schedule. We have a Finance and Technology Committee meeting coming up on March 10th, which is Wednesday. That will be at noon here at the district office. We're still kind of finalizing where that will be. But what we'll likely do is use the second floor conference room because we have some people that are going to be joining virtually for that. So that's a joint Finance and Technology Committee meeting. There is a Benefits Advisory Group meeting. That's a virtual meeting on Thursday, the 11th at 4:30. An HR Committee meeting on March 17th at 4 o'clock. And I'll just keep going through all the ones that are already scheduled, and then we'll come back to what we need to schedule. Our next regularly scheduled board meeting is on March 22nd at 6:30 here in the PDC. We have spring break, March 29th through April 2nd. We have a candidate forum for school board candidates that is coming up on Thursday, March 18th. That is live streamed on the School District of Milton Communications YouTube channel. And that starts or is scheduled to run from 6:30 until 8 p.m. on Thursday, March 18th.
That did it run on the YouTube channel? No.
So stand corrected that the candidate forum will be on the Milton Area Chamber of Commerce platforms, and you can find information on their website. We need a transportation committee meeting on Wednesday, the 17th. So transportation committee members, we need to set that. And then we need to set a policy committee meeting for April 7th. So if we want to start with the transportation meeting on Wednesday, the 17th, is there a time that works best for people that day?
Can they make it at 3 o'clock right before the HR back to back?
That'd be fine.
I can't do 3 o'clock, sorry.
Could you do after the HR meeting?
I can't.
Can't do that either. Earlier in the day works better for you? Noon on the 17th?
Is that third Wednesday of the month?
Yes. And it's St. Patrick's Day, if that matters.
That might be the most important piece.
Can you do midday?
So Transportation Committee at noon on Wednesday, the 17th. And then it's a ways out, but April 7th for policy.
Yeah, Wednesdays aren't gonna work though for policy. What about, you want it before that April 12th board meeting?
Yes.
What about April 1st?
That's spring break is that week, so I think that we have some of our admin team that are going to be taking some time off that week.
All right, yeah. Well, then that week it's gonna have to be at 6:30.
Does 6:30 on Wednesday, the 7th work?
No,
Okay.
Wednesday doesn't work because it doesn't work for me or Brian.
All right. Tuesday, the 6th?
That's election day. I don't know if that makes a difference, but it's just election day.
Are we allowed to have meetings on election day?
Yeah, okay.
I don't see why not.
6? Yeah, I can make it over.
6. Right, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, 6. That had to be 6:30.
So 6:30 PM on Tuesday, April 6th for policy. All right. And that,
Yeah, I think so.
We said 6:30.
Yep.
6:30 on April 6th. Yep.
Thank you.
And those were all of the meetings. And Kim, did you get all of those?
Can I just ask a question about the March 17th transportation? It worked where Dave and I did the 3rd. It worked
That's
for-
That's me, I think.
and
That's
it
fine,
worked for you?
that's fine.
Okay.
And Chris, what did you have?
The HR committee, we have not scheduled that one for sure. I wanted to throw it out to the board members to see what their schedules were like. If we need to change it from March 17th to possibly the 18th, if that would work better.
I'm unavailable for those days. I'm actually traveling for work.
Did you say both days you weren't available?
And 18th? Okay.
Would you like to keep it at the 4:30?
What about Tuesday, the 16th?
I think it would be up to Rick.
It'd have to be 6:30.
Does that work for the other HR committee members?
What, 6:30 and what day were we talking?
16th, Tuesday.
Tuesday, the 16th. Jennifer's out of 17th and 18th.
Work, yep.
That work, Jen?
Yes, I might be just traveling. I have another board meeting for this organization. So until
6:45.
No, it's, I might be just a little late.
Okay.
When you're late, you have to bring treats.
All right.
Okay, you can get more action items.
Cookies.
Unless it's not like that.
It was Tuesday, the 16th at 6:30. Yeah, I didn't see.
Bring his treats.
Oh,
Right? Yeah, I'm sitting at the train going, come on.
Kim, do you have all of those down now? All right. Is there anything else on that you needed?
No, thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, are we good on meeting dates?
Good on meeting dates.
Who wants to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.